Welcome to A Rabbi and a Lawyer Walk Into a Bar, a podcast with relatively well-informed and irreverent musings on religion, news, and society. And now, for your hosts, Rabbi Asher Lopatin and John Geringer.
Hey, John, how are you?
Hey, Asher. We're gone for a few weeks and the entire Middle East changes from darkness into light.
I know, thank God, thank God. And I was just in Israel 2 weeks ago, and I said there better be a ceasefire or all hell will break. We went up to the Galil with all the hostages on front and center everywhere, and there are yellow chairs everywhere and pictures. And despite that, there is light. There is such vitality in Israel when the stores and the malls and Mamila and Malcha, Canyon Malcha, and there's romance in the air, and we're in Jaffa. Galil is beautiful.
What kind of program did you go on?
It was a very small interfaith mission. I brought a wonderful local priest. I was a big supporter of Israel. He's been to Israel many times, but he said this is the first time it's really been a Jewish trip. And then a really great guy and his wife, who is running for Congress 2 years from now. A great guy that I've known since he was a state senator. And his wife's a psychologist. So it was a very small group. I was the driver. Did
you have a cool hat?
I should have gotten one next time. I love driving in Israel. We got the car. You get it right away from Hertz. You don't have to negotiate with anyone.
Well, nobody ever, Asher.
Yeah. Well, I love driving in the old city. You drive around the walls. You go up to the Mount of Olives. It's incredible. One place we parked in East, like right down from the Mountain of Olives. The parking spot was overlooking the Dome of the Rock and Temple Mount, and it's incredible. Where else do you get a view like that? By the way, if you walk around the city of Jerusalem and you get past Shar HaRachamim, the Gate of Mercy, which has the cemetery, Mount of Olives on one side, and the Muslim cemetery on the other. You keep walking up that hill, there is a great gas station, and there's a bathroom there if you need a bathroom break. And used to have that bathroom, used to have the best view in the world overlooking the Mount of Olives. That's where Messiah's coming from. So we had a good time.
Wow. And I heard a rumor that you even davened up there.
Yes, trigger warning. I know people have issues with the Temple Mount, some people say many people can't even go up. That's the official position of the Rabbanut in Israel. I don't always follow the Rabbanut. I have some issues with the rabbin in Israel. And Rav Goren, who was the chief rabbi of the army when they liberated Jerusalem and the Temple Mount and the Kotel, he said you can go up. So they have a whole group. It's a whole story. John, are you ready for a little story of going up to the Temple Mount?
I am. I just want you to be careful because as I recall from my history, when we liberated it in 1967, a couple soldiers put the Israeli flag up there, and Moshe Dayan said, "Do you want to see the Middle East on fire?"
Yeah, so look, that's what they said when we moved the embassy back to Jerusalem. And that's what they said when Trump recognized the goal. I think that you got to do what's right sometimes.
Let's look at it from two perspectives, right? So before we get on to the politics, on the religious side,
yes.
How do you justify it? Are you using a minority opinion, or you just say, I'm Asher Lopatin, I could do what I want?
Good. I love that. Thanks, John. I really feel it's a matter of pikuach nefesh. It's a matter of asserting Jewish sovereignty there. And I think if we don't go up on the Temple Mount, we're going to lose sovereignty there. I really feel that above everything, it is pikuach nefesh. And then, so therefore, I follow the opinions that they might be minority opinions. It's a growing, increasing voice in Israel that you can go up to. You're not going where the Holy of Holies is. You're going around. You don't go into the Dome of the Rock. You go around. So it's safe. They have a whole map of where you can go so that it's religiously, Jewishly okay, because we're all considered impure. So you're supposed to go to the mikvah the day before or the day of, and you're not supposed to wear leather shoes, because you wouldn't do that on Har HaBayit, on the Temple Mount. But we're not going into where the temple was, the Heichal, some of the places that you could not go if you were impure.
And just to place it in history, and we'll get to it later when we talk about Hanukkah. First Temple period, we're looking at 957-ish to 586 BC. And then we had a break when we were in Babylon. We come back in 538 BC. The Second Temple starts in 515 BC.
Or
And
BCE.
or BCE, sorry, for our Jewish friends out there. BCE, before the Common Era. And then, just to put things in historical context, the Dome of the Rock was built in like the 690 AD.
Yeah, the Arab conquest.
Way later. So when they talk about Jews are colonizers, they're the ones who plopped their Dome of the Rock on top of the Temple Mount.
Yeah, it was, and in fact, Islamic sources say that it was built where the Beit al-Maqdis was, where the Beit HaMikdash, where the temple was. Now, in the view of Muslims of Islam, they feel that was a Muslim, the temple was a Muslim place, and the King David was a Muslim, and Solomon was a Muslim. But yeah, they recognize that the temple where the Jews offered their sacrifices was on that place. And so it was destroyed in 70 CE, and the Romans and then the Byzantines didn't allow anything to happen there. And the only place we could get to would be the supporting wall, which is the Western Wall, which is not the wall of the temple, but was just this wall that supports the mountain upon which the temple was. Look, let's take it slow. So let's not go up there and build a synagogue right away, but let's go slowly. And actually, now you're hearing on this podcast, so I don't know, people actually in a very quiet way do a little bit of praying and do a little bowing, because the law is you're not allowed to bow fully, prostrate yourself 100% on the floor. When we do it on the high holidays,
Yom Kippur.
so you see everyone's like on their knees bowing, the way Muslims bow, actually. You get on your knees and you bow down. But fully lying down, that's like the complete bowing. That's serious
prostrate.
Prostrate. So you're not allowed to prostrate yourself anywhere. And if there's stone, you're not allowed to even bow the way we do it. So you have to, sometimes people take out a shmata or something.
Right,
or
paper towels or whatever.
A paper towel, a dirty handkerchief or something. And they put it down because maybe the floor might be stone or something. But on the Temple Mount, I asked this, there was a guy that was there, he was like a professional, but on the Temple Mount, you are allowed to bow. That's the place you are allowed. So they're doing a lot of bowing there at the Gate of Mercy, Sharachamim. And I actually think it's amazing because there are certain changes in the actual prayers that only occur when you're on the Temple Mount. You don't have to be in the temple. Again, we can't go where the temple was exactly because that we're impure, but anywhere on the Temple Mount, you change the prayers. When you're on the Temple Mount, the Mishnah says, the Talmud says, you have to say, Baruch atah Hashem min ha'olam ve'ad ha'olam. You add those words. So I was there and one guy was davening and the guards were there watching us carefully, making sure we didn't get out of hand.
And translate what you just said about the world.
Yeah, the Baruch atah Hashem means blessed are you, God. Min ha'olam ve'ad ha'olam means from the world, from one end of the world to the other end of the world, right, or from one world to the other world. And that gets added only when you're on the Temple Mount. I had learned that at one point, but I'd totally forgotten it.
It doesn't come in that handy.
So the guy was davening quietly, but we all heard him. And he said, and so I asked another guy, like, what's he saying? What's he adding? And they said, that's what you say when you're on the Temple. And also, you don't answer amen, right? We always amen. We always answer amen to a blessing. Right. You answer if you remember, from the high holiday service from Yom Kippur, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchut Olam V'ed. Bless the name of God forever and ever. Really interesting stuff.
Let me ask you this. I'm trying to situate it. Are you facing east?
We're facing wherever the Holy of Holies.
So I asked the question because depending on where you are, you may not be facing east.
Exactly. So you always, so actually where this person was praying and leading the prayers, I had prayed already, but I was afraid, the status quo, you might not be allowed to pray. We were facing probably, I think it was like north or something. I'm trying to think west, something like that. Yeah. But we were facing the Dome of the Rock, where
Right. Was it a dedicated minyan of 10 guys or no?
there were 10 people. That's another thing. So when I went up with my group of non-Jews, but I had my kippah on, my skull cap, my yarmulke, and they segregated us. They took us aside. You couldn't go up with a kippah unless you're in a group and that is where the guards are. So we had to split up. And I said, I don't want to take off my kippah on the holy Temple Mount. I was with all the crazies. They're wonderful people, but like that. And
that seems to be your vibe anyway.
I was into it. My little rebellion, my boy.
Yeah, it's pretty on brand for you.
A little bit edgy. So when we were going up there, you walk up that ramp, the Maghribi ramp, singing Nalet Yerushalayim, something like that. We go up to Jerusalem. And then, so I was with that. So I was happy because that's the way we were able to pray and do all these radical things. And one other thing, which was very touching, we were on one side of the Dome of the Rock. And according to the people who understand the Jewish, like rabbis that think about it, they think that they agree with the Muslims. That rock that is under the Dome of the Rock, there's a big rock, that is the Even Shetia, that is the rock that was existing in the Second Temple period where the Holy of Holies was. There wasn't an ark.
Isn't that the foundation stone? Isn't that
exactly? Yeah, that the world was created on that. Abraham bound Isaac on. And interestingly, that's not where Al-Aqsa, the holiest mosque, the Silver Dome, used to be Silver Dome, that's a different mosque on the Temple Mount. It was so interesting. One other really great thing that really was, there was a kid for his bar mitzvah. He was almost 13. He did a siyum. He finished off a tractate.
Wow.
Happened to be Sukkot. And this kid apparently started doing daf yomi, a page of Talmud a day.
7 years.
He did it from age 5. So he's finishing, you're right, he's finishing pretty much his first cycle,
Yeah.
But you end off, remember, John, you and I were at the daf yomi celebration in Chicago.
Yeah, was that in the late 90s?
Yeah, and you ended off with a special Kaddish that talks about the rebuilding of Jerusalem. It's a special Kaddish only said at a siyum when you're finishing a tractate.
Yeah, I remember.
And it talks about, and God will rebuild the city of Jerusalem. I just love it. And honestly, I love the Dome of the Rock. I think it's beautiful. It's not going anywhere. I will be the first one when the Mashiach comes, when the Messiah comes, to protest and say, we need to keep that beautiful building.
Let me ask you this. You said they. Is the people who controlled it IDF or the Waqf?
Oh, interestingly, they were the guards were Jewish and Druze. They weren't all Jewish, but...
And tell everyone who the Waqf are.
Yes, the Waqf literally means a trust, and that is a Muslim trust that controls different Muslim holy sites. That's the story you mentioned at the beginning, John, that when Israel conquered, liberated the Temple Mount, and Harabait Biadenu, the Temple Mount's in our hands, famous words that were said. The famous story, which I've heard so many times, let's say it's true, is the head of the Waqf, who had the head of the trust of the Temple Mount, of the Haram HaSharif, of the Al-Aqsa.
When the Jordanians had it.
He came to Moshe Dayan and was going to give him the key. And that's when Moshe Dayan said, yeah, let's keep the status quo. I don't know. I think it was a big mistake. I think I made a decision. It's interesting that we weren't stopped. We were surrounded by guards, by Jewish or army guard. They might have been police. I think they were the police, but the Jewish side, the Israel, let's say the Israel side. So it was a very moving experience. The world is still, things moved on.
Were you mingling with the Muslim worshipers, or were you kept pretty separate?
We were totally separate. And there weren't a lot of people there. It wasn't a Friday, and it wasn't a time of prayer. And we weren't close to either of the, to the Dome of the Rock or the Al-Aqsa Mosque. And we'll see when Huckabee takes Trump up to the Temple Mount and they say some Christian prayers. We'll see what happens.
He's going to put a Chabad up there, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I saw him. I've been watching a lot, these alternative news networks, not just Newsmax, but there's First Things or something. There are a whole bunch of interesting things. And Huckabee's somewhere. They get all the old guys. Bill O'Reilly is
Oh
back,
yeah,
and
they all found homes, huh?
yeah, yeah.
And Huckabee is a fellow bass player.
Oh, there you go. So you,
Yeah,
you have a little bond with him.
yeah, exactly.
So it was great. Israel is, again, it's deep. The wound is so deep and it's existing, but at the same time, they managed to live and to thrive. And that train to Tel Aviv, it's like 1,000 feet down. You go to the station, it's like 1,000 feet down because it's got to be level. It's a high-speed train, and Jerusalem's so high and Tel Aviv's so low, so it's got to be level. Israel, they say Chaval Azman. It's like incredible.
How are they dealing with Bibi being on trial during all of this?
Yeah, no one likes BB, and I don't say no, and I'm sure there are a lot of people that do, but I don't know. We met with Israelis like in the Galil, and we saw a lot of Israelis, but I don't think we got into deep because I was the taxi driver. So had we taken a taxi, but it was interesting. The guy who took us to the Nova Forest Festival Forest, which is very powerful, and the things in State Road, all things in the South. He had survived the Nova Festival. He had
Wow.
escaped. He had a whole story. He said he really used to be much more of in the peace camp, and he's moved away from that camp now. He really felt very differently, it's sad, but I'm not at all surprised.
Those towns along the Gaza Ring there, a lot of them were lefties who wanted to have peace
Yeah.
and would be doing favors for the Gazans. And I just saw a video that I remember seeing at the beginning, and this was from a year or so ago, before October 7th, where everyone was celebrating because the IDF were handing out work permits and everyone was in a good mood and all of that. And
Yeah.
really, I think it shocked the system so much that the two-state solution is dead for the foreseeable.
There's another podcast. It's almost as popular as ours, Dan Senor's, and
He may have a few more digits on his numbers.
he had a professor, I think it was Yardena Schwartz, who wrote a book about the 1929 riots in Hebron.
Yeah.
And she said that in Hebron, there were only 800 Jews, 20,000 Muslims, 800 Jews. The Jews there felt we are at peace with our neighbors. We work with them. Many of them are landlords. They're our friends. And in fact, 2 days before the riots began in August 24th, the Haganah, this pre-state, 1929,
Right.
the Israeli Zionist Defense Force, they said, we'll come in to Hebron to protect you. And the Jews said, no, we don't want you. We are safe with our brothers and sisters, our Muslim brothers and sisters. And hundreds were slaughtered. Over 100 were slaughtered.
Previous guest, Rich Goldberg, one of his relatives was there.
Oh my God. And survived?
And survived. And when we get his two brothers, who are twins, Orthodox Jews, maybe the only ones in the country who are judges, we'll get them to tell that story.
Yeah, but that's interesting. Israel just so much wants peace and wants to feel that we can live together, and then you get these horrible things that occur that just goes back to Israel alone. Am Levadad Yish, God, the prophecy of Bill, that we live separately. So very difficult, but it's an amazing place.
That's great. And while we're thinking about the temple, it's hard not to think about Hanukkah, right?
That's right. Oh yeah. So that's a good segue, John.
Not bad, huh?
But I think when we think about Hanukkah, we think about, yes, the Hashmonaim purified the temple on the 25th of Kislev, but we also think about those wicked Syrian Greeks and Antiochus the Fourth.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was listening to, sorry, I cheat on you sometimes with other rabbis, and I was listening to another shiur on YouTube, and he was talking about how most Jewish expressions are not violence, are not attacking, but Hanukkah was that, and that makes it different than some of the other ways in which our rabbis told us to fight back spiritually.
And it started out as Jew versus Jew. That's one reason some suggest that the Book of Maccabees 1 or Book of Maccabees 2 didn't make it into the Tanakh, into the Jewish Bible, because it talks about how they were a little bit violent with it was like a civil war
Yeah,
first.
and Antiochus comes in on the side of the Hellenists, and
Yeah.
then comes in and puts an altar to Zeus and bans Brit Mila and sacrifices
Uh,
pigs, and that was enough.
so John, I think we're in the modern Orthodox camp, the broad modern Orthodox. I hope we weren't the Hellenists on that side.
Where you stand depends on where you sit.
Yeah, it's funny that
Well, we would have been, even modern Orthodox, I would assume, would be against sacrificing pigs on the temple.
yeah, agreed. One of the things that they didn't like is that they set up sports stadiums. And I saw some of our former ASBI Anshe Shalom folks were at the Bears game and they were proud of it right before Hanukkah.
Yeah, we'd have to put them in harem too, right? Exile.
I think it's fascinating that ancient Syria, the Seleucids, whatever, Syrian-Greeks, they're not related to the current day Syria, but it is fascinating that Syria is such an important part of Hanukkah this year, really.
Yeah, and when we think about, a few people told me about the last couple podcasts. They said, "You guys have been so down. Can't you pick it up a little bit?" I said, "We're just reflections of the world." And now I'm feeling good.
Yeah, thank God.
I mean, if 60 Minutes is showing Mossad guys showing their beeper operation, that was fantastic.
Yeah, and one of the things that the 60 Minutes pointed out is that it was really intended to only hurt the terrorist, the Hezbollah guy, and not the people around him. And in fact, it was nice that they pointed out. I've seen that film from the store blows up, but they showed that it really was just that person. It's amazing. That's a miracle that 60 Minutes can have something that's pro-Israel. That's a real Hanukkah miracle, I'd say.
And it was so typical, right? The Mossad guys dressed all in black and talking tough and showing their skills and saying, "Yeah, we can talk about this one because there's plenty more to come."
Like, look, the Houthis really got to deal with them. It's really problematic. But yeah, the hope is that the Syria will be able to live in peace with Israel and in peace with itself. And you're right. If you think about a year ago, we're still devastated by our hostages who are not home. But I have to say, a year ago, this time was not a great time. And now with Hezbollah mostly out and really good, God willing, things will turn around. And for the world, it's just not for Israel. It's like shipping routes. It's like crazy. And Egypt depends on money from the Suez Canal, and with the Houthis shooting all these ships, that people aren't going to go through the Suez Canal. And now I guess we're going to take over the Panama Canal. So it's a lot.
And right, you hate to be too optimistic, right? When Abu Muhammad al-Jawlani, the guy who heads up Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, HTS, that took over Syria, is talking about basically agreeing to the 74 buffer zone and the DMZ with Israel, not threatening anything vis-a-vis Israel and not threatening the UN disengagement observer force between, or that used to be there. It's shocking in a way to see that. Now, maybe it is a typical ploy that we've seen where they pretend to drop their guard and then we drop our guard and then they attack. But the very fact that he's saying it and now dressing in ties and except for the fact that they just burned a Christmas tree.
Oh, they couldn't hold back.
I was hoping a little optimism then, and then I saw the burning Christmas tree. The fascinating thing was the fact that the Druze villages were voting to be part of Israel.
Yeah, I've heard.
Did you see that?
That's very exciting to really, because their religion is that they are loyal to the country that they're living in. That's their way of survival, and they're very
to the land, so to speak.
Yeah, but the fact that if they consider that land Israel, it vindicates the Golan Heights being an official part of Israel and a little bump up from the Golan Heights.
I love the story that they think, and who knows if it's true, that Assad basically said, "Don't shoot down my plane, and I'll tell you where my bases are."
Oh, that is good. Good information, John. That's good. Yeah, interesting. Years ago, Donald Aronson, who was married to our president, to go to the school, Julia's still, I think, the president of her condo association in Israel.
That doesn't surprise me.
But Donald is a doctor and is
biologist. Yeah.
he was railing against wearing ties. He said ties, they get in the way, they get infected. Their doctors shouldn't wear ties. And then a few years ago, as a bar mitzvah, our good friend, Rabbi Elliot Cosgrove, who was in Chicago,
Yeah.
and he didn't wear a tie Friday night, didn't wear a tie. I said, like, okay, no more ties. No, we're done with ties. And you know that I had that great tie collection of fun ties.
Oh,
Like
I loved your ties.
ties. But now no one's, but now Jelani, and he's changed his name also, he's into ties again. Maybe it's going to come back into style. Who knows? Into fashion.
So you think the era of dead ties was COVID to Jelani.
Exactly.
And then when he changes his name, now ties are cool again.
Ties are cool. Now he doesn't wear such, he could spruce up his ties, but it's a good start. It's a good start.
I saw a funny meme when he got dressed up like that. Someone said he looked like one of our fellow Jews in the Five Towns, in one of those Long Island towns.
And that's quite the compliment, I'd say.
Don't you think?
Yeah, we have a member of our synagogue here, Nancy Berman, who has a company called Nan Danny. She sells very fancy ties to women. So ties are not just for Lonnie, but they're also for women.
I'll keep that in mind.
It makes for a good gift if you can
Speaking
afford
of Hanukkah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, John, you got to tell me you did a Lot Homentashen debate. Can you explain that?
Yeah, so the Laka Homatash debate began at UFC in, I think, 1946. And we talked about this last year. The old school way, and the way it's still done at UFC and other places, University of Chicago, is that you get experts in the field, physicists, therapists, you name it, doctors, to basically advocate for one side or the other, for latkes versus hamantash, and it's a great shtick debate. We did it at our shul this year. We switched. So this year I was anti-Purim and anti-hamantashen. And I had some fun zingers, I have to say. The fact that hamantashen are so easy that kids can make it. So I talked about the booger to jelly ratio being too high on that. And then saying, of course, that rates by the FDA 10 times higher than what the FDA would want. And then I made a joke about maybe that ratio will change under the Trump administration.
If it's healthy, if RFK believes it's more wholesome to have mucus, then some of the ingredients that are in jelly, I'm sure some of the fake red dyes that they put in probably, I don't know, perhaps, I don't know. Can I just give a quick plug? It's a little heretical, but Trader Joe's potato pancakes, latkes, outstanding.
I agree.
What's that?
I agree 100%. They're fantastic.
Yeah, so why waste the time with peeling the potatoes and grating the potato? And okay, you use if you feel that yours are superior, anyone feels that's great, but Trader Joe's are good. And frankly, we have a kosher Krispy Kreme in Detroit, and Krispy Kreme jelly donuts are great sufganiyot. So that's my heresy I feel bad for the kosher bakeries, but kosher Krispy Kreme are very good. I can't really vouch for Dunkin' Donuts jelly donuts, but definitely Krispy Kreme are outstanding. And we use them. We did a Hanukkah Diwali again. We celebrated the Hindu holiday of Diwali. I really can't tell you there are many different stories about it, about what Diwali is, but all I can tell you is that the communities mix so well, the Hindu and Jewish communities, and people were putting on saris, and it's not easy to put a sari on. It takes a long time, but the Jews loved it. It was like, and the Hindus were doing Israeli dancing. So it was very important communities to bring together, and there are a lot of similarities, not just even religious, but also national similarities. So that was great. How did we get? Oh, yeah, and I bought Krispy Kreme donuts for sufganiyot for that.
I love Krispy Kremes. Oh my God, those are the best. And that's why we talked about the stretchy waistbands in the pants that I have, and those are definitely needed.
I don't know if we're going to get a chance to talk maybe next time about Greenland. Maybe we'll see if really America does acquire Greenland, because now that it's in Detroit, we're kicked over 45 minutes from Eastern. We're on Eastern time, but we're on the western edge of it. And so sunrise is like after 8 o'clock, 8:01 today. And so it's a whole big deal about when you put on your tefillin and your talis and when you can say a blessing for them. And I've always wanted to visit Greenland. I wanted to visit Iceland. Everyone's visiting Iceland now. It's nothing new, and I haven't. But Greenland now, I think United Airlines might be flying to Greenland or to Nuuk, to N-U-U-K. They built a new airport there.
I checked because you had mentioned that, and turns out there are no Chabad in Greenland, but there is one Jew, a guy named Paul Cohn, who's lived there for 22 years, who works as a translator remotely. So you should go visit him.
Yeah, I think I'm going to do that. I want to leapfrog Iceland, go to Greenland, and there's actually opening a new hotel and plant the modern Orthodox flag there. There was like that, the Michigan-Ohio State game where there was like some controversy that Michigan planted a flag and got in a big fight. I want to plant the modern Orthodox flag in Greenland and beat Chabad. So if there are any Chabadniks listening to this.
Oh, it's like the race to the moon, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
And both the modern Orthodox and Chabad both love herring. And I'm sure there's a lot of good herring over there.
There you go. Yes, yes. And yeah, there are lots of supervisions to give out there also. There's a job to be done there in Greenland.
And you're just the guy to do it.
I can't wait. I want to raise a little bit of money. But yeah, no, it'll be but there praying is crazy because it's so north, and I don't even imagine. I don't know when sunrise is in the winter in the Arctic Circle, and boy,
yeah. So have you studied that stuff? So if you do have those crazy time zone things, what do you do?
Yeah, there are a lot of different opinions, but most people say you go with the closest Jewish community that actually has a sunrise and a sunset. And so you wait till, let's say, maybe it's Denmark or something, or maybe it is Iceland, and then you follow that time. Yeah, it's really, from the Torah, you only have to really pray once a day, like Maimonides. But I heard that there's one island, this is I learned from Facebook, that there's one island that has
so
no
it must be true.
Yeah, it's somewhere north. It's an island somewhere. They have no time. They've given up time.
I saw that.
Yeah, didn't you see that?
Yeah.
So who knows? But that's
yeah. Well, I was running into this problem, and this is actually a good time to ask you when. And I hate to flex my morning ritual, but I try to put on tefillin every morning. There are many times where I have to leave early, and I check on my app on my phone, and it says it's too early to put on tefillin. So what are you supposed to do in those situations?
Yeah, look, you could put them on later in the day, but you might be at work till sunset, till it's dark.
Right.
So many opinions say you can really put it on even when it's dark. Halachically, you actually fulfill your obligation of tefillin at night, but the rabbis say they don't want you falling asleep with your tefillin. So there are many opinions that say that if you wake up, you're not going to fall asleep. You might doze off, but you're theoretically not falling asleep again. Even if it's, say, 90 minutes before sunrise, you can put on tefillin, and perhaps even earlier, and you don't have to worry about it. Rav Moshe Feinstein dealt with this. I don't want to get in trouble on this podcast if I'm saying it wrong, but I think people rely on him to say that you can really put it on early. But I know our synagogue, the rabbi in where I have my own synagogue for the weekends, but during the week I go to Young Israel Southfield when I'm good. And he's very strict, like only say a blessing on it an hour before sunrise. But you really could say it 90 minutes. Should be okay, because sunrise in Chicago is probably around 7:15 now. And so that's before 6 a.m. Is that early enough? Who knows?
Yeah, that's why you're my rabbi. You know where the leniences are, and you invoke them.
Going up to the Temple Mount or putting your tefillin on when it's dark outside. Thank God, those should be the leniencies. Though
well, you can't be pigeonholed, right? Because going to the Temple Mount is pretty provocative.
Yes, I think it's like good zealotry for Hanukkah. But look, I feel bad. I don't want to give the Israeli army more tsaras, more work to do. But I really feel it really is important for us in a nice, kind way to go up to the Temple Mount, to be there, and I feel I got into this argument with Rabbi Melchior, great rabbi in Israel, giant, about praying on the Temple Mount. It's just not fair that it's a bad status quo that Muslims can pray and Jews and Christians cannot pray. And again, I understand you can't just do whatever you want. Israel's trying to have a state and they're trying to have peace. But to some extent, I think we've been too reticent. I don't know. I think in the Middle East, people respect strength. And
I agree. I agree. And that's really the lesson I think that has been learned since October 7th, that in that neighborhood, that's the only thing you can project.
Yeah. But look, God willing, the hostage will be home and we'll celebrate Hanukkah with that kind of joy and we'll rededicate ourselves. It means the Chanukah Habayit, rededication of ourselves to the right path and to being good people we're supposed to be.
I love that we're back being optimistic.
Yeah, thank God. Look, it's incredible. What a miracle. And also, I have to say that, I won't say the name, but a Muslim friend of mine said that he knows that Assad fell because of the work that Israel did with Hamas and Hezbollah and Iran. And I think everyone knows that. Yes, Ukraine, Russia was overstretched in Ukraine also, but it's clearly that. And look at Assad murdering 500,000 people and 100,000 tortured to death in that prison. And that's what the world people should be ashamed. All those protesters on college campuses should be ashamed that they didn't. You want to protest Israel and Gaza, fine, but they mentioned nothing about Syria. And Syria only fell because Israel was strong against Hezbollah and Hamas and Iran. What are you going to say?
I think you said it all. Yeah. In that case, I wish you a Hanukkah Sameach.
Hanukkah Sameach.
And it's good to be back.
Oh, it's great. Good. We'll see you soon, John.
Thank you for listening to this episode of A Rabbi and a Lawyer Walk Into a Bar. If you liked what you heard, please subscribe to get our next episode delivered right to you. If you really like us, please consider leaving a review and sharing this with a friend. That would really help our efforts. And finally, to contact us and for more show-related information, please visit our website, rabbilawyerbar.com. Special thanks to our production team, David Stone for the introduction music, Andrew Bauman for the artwork, and I'm Nicholas Tantillo. This podcast is co-produced with Front and Social Studios in Chicago. Disclaimer: the views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent. Copyrighted material, all rights reserved.